Mary escaped an abusive marriage, experienced domestic violence, and a seriously ill child. The death of her youngest son, who died in a car accident while having a shared death experience with him, evolved her into the work she does now. Join us as we discover how Mary got through all of this to help others in their lives. Hey, Mary, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
Yeah, good. Excited. So, definitely excited that you decided to join me on this journey. So, let's get started.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. So, I always have a hard time getting through that part. I don't know why, but that's okay. Um, can you go a little bit deeper into this trauma that you experienced so our audience can hear just how profound it is and how you got to where you are now?
Sure. So I'll share a little bit about my challenges, my experiences from the past that, yes, were incredibly traumatic. Um, so I suppose I don't go into it, by the way. I stand aside from it and I look at it and I say, wow, how did I do that? And
Hmm.
that's part of what I am compelled to, share with others because I've gone through some things that were quite challenging. So you said a few of the things. I was married very young at first, and I have had two marriages. And my first marriage, while, looking at that, that was also a challenge and a trauma because I was 22 years old and I was left with two children, 4 and 2, and no, and my husband at the time just left. So I went through that because I did have so much. I had a lot of love and support from his family. So always, I was always met with, I want to call it miracles, synchronicity, grace. And maybe I was born looking for that, but I was open to it and I feel so blessed. And so I do share that with others. When we're in the throes of these traumas, there usually is light and there's someone or something or some learning or awareness that comes through this. So I had two kids and was single. And then I got into my second marriage, and that was, I look back, I was 26, 27, and
Mm. Wow.
thought, I thought, okay, I'll get I want a normal
Whatever
family.
whatever that means.
And a lot of the trauma was kind of, well, the trauma was people who haven't done their healing, people who continue to hurt them inside, and the only way they know to feel better, I suppose, is to take it out on others. And I came from a family that was like that and didn't really know any different, right? So being a single mom, and it was very, it was very challenging. I thought, oh, I'll get married, I'll have a husband and he'll help me and we'll be partners. Okay.
In
As
your
you
in your highly sensitive empath mind, you're saying this,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah. I was like, I know how this is gonna go. And I also was working, this would I want to say this that was in the 80s, but uh I also, at the same time that I was experiencing these challenges, I was becoming aware of higher consciousness and meditation and uh, different ways of looking at things, and maybe not so much therapy back then, but counseling and coaching and helping. Anyway, so that was always running alongside, as kind of an alternate way of looking at life. My empathic nature was full on, widened, opened with the birth of my daughter, then my son. And it was, while it was being fueled, which really helped me, it also was not understood, right? So I get into this marriage with a highly toxic, abusive person who I thought was what he said he was, but he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew quite quickly that
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't real. It wasn't true. It was my wishing, hoping, helping, seeing the highest good in everybody. Because that's the empath.
Yep.
Right. And then when I started to see, I was like, oh, but I already promised to marry him. And so we were off. But I also have to say it was so synchronistic. It was so synchronistic that we met. I mean, it's like when you look at life, like, how did that even happen? As
Right.
you know, and I knew in my gut, I kind of knew that I was going to have to do this. It was like there's something going on here. It's deeper than what we see on the outside. And I also want to caveat that with we always have a choice. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when our choices are so deeply rooted in our trauma and karma I always look at as soul learning. Okay, it's not a punishment, it's a soul learning. It's like I view life as my soul came here to learn certain experiences. And once I got oh, I am to trust myself, I am to love and honor myself, I am to, all those soul learnings, those are soul learnings are always about love of self, love of healing from it's soul learning, I believe, is healing from the trauma. So I,
So
I
can
just,
you,
go
I know
ahead.
you're going to get to this part, but I want to ask this anyway this way. Can you relate what you just said about the soul learning piece to, for example, your son that died in the accident and the shared death experience with him? Because
Yes.
obviously is a double soul learning there. And I think that would be really interesting to hear.
Yes, yes. So that the second husband that I married, knowing there was going to be some deep karmic stuff, soul learning, it's his father. It was the last of my three children I had with him.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
it does connect, then our first child was our child born with the heart defect and required a lot of medical, serious
Mm.
defect. And then, so we had to deal with that. So what's the soul learning with um, me and my ex, let's say, and then a child three children came through him, biologically with me. I had two we raised all those together. I raised all my children together always,
So that's
but
five. That's
five
five
children,
kids.
I have five
Wow.
children.
Okay.
And each one, yeah, has a special bond and soul like learning. But anyway, so with that question, how does that relate? The so fast forward, I was married to this man who I knew, pretty quickly he was from an abusive family. I didn't know from high, you know, alcoholics. We lived we lived across the country from his family, so I didn't really see them day to day. And
Mm.
never dealt with any of these traumas. And then I was living the traumas, with him.
Sure.
But it always was kept at bay. So I didn't quite know what was going on. Uh,
Right.
Trusting my own knowing, trusting my intuition. Yes, I was growing that all along. And that has to do with the soul learning with me and my son who passed. I kept, no matter what happened, I kept turning within and learning more about who I am at my core, what matters to me, what do I value, what feels right, what doesn't feel right. And so the more I did that, the more it was coming clear to me that I was in this relationship with someone who was not well and not good for me. So I started to pray for help with something. I needed help, and boom, I was pregnant with my child who passed. So I was pregnant. I was like, what? But then
That happened.
when he was born, and I couldn't for the life of me, I know, go, wait, how did that happen? Because my
Yeah.
husband at the time traveled all the time, and I was like, I don't know how that happened. Well, fast forward, it was within all these things started happening to get me out of the relationship with this child. And
Hmm.
and so like all of a sudden we moved to another place where I felt much more at home and better. And then my youngest child he was like this light that came in to say, okay, mom, you asked for help. I'm going to give it to you, but it's going to be a big change, big, big changes. So then we ended up moving to Colorado, and then we ended up all the hidden stuff that my ex was doing came out.
Mm.
It all came out. I didn't have to be the one to out him, so to speak, but because he was doing these things to everyone else. But I don't, it was something with the birth of my youngest child and my prayer. It's like, boom, all these things started to be revealed. And because I had continued to trust in myself and my soul and my spirit and that part of me that I call, our authentic self,
Hmm.
or, then I was kind of ready for that to happen. My marriage blew up. My youngest son took a lot. He was 8 at the time, took a lot of the brunt because he was incredibly intuitive also. So years passed, but during those years, I built a home that I knew I wanted for my children, which was peace. Peace-filled, nurture, sacred space. They could just be here and know they were loved unconditionally. That was not my home. That was what I built, but then we had the dad, the husband who came in and messed it all up, and then and that's kind of how I was raised too. It wasn't a peaceful house. It was very much yelling and hard and difficult and cruel, mean stuff. So I built this home. I was intuitive, naturally a counselor. I learned Reiki. I learned all these things that were so natural for me and called to me. And they would always kind of fall in my lap in a way, but then I would work hard at providing a very uh, succinct, sacred space for myself and my clients, my children, my home. So when it came to the time where my son passed, um, I knew I had such a deep soul connection with him already. He had also gone through addiction and substance abuse, and this was family, ancestral. And I knew some of these things I heard. I said that makes sense. Like when I met his dad, it was like something's going on here. It's like soul level. Then when I heard generational trauma, and I said, oh, that's what I have. That's what my son, and I'm breaking those generational trauma. Um, uh, where you keep doing the same thing over and over.
Patterns, the patterns.
Patterns,
Yeah.
yes, all the beliefs that go with it, well, that's how it is, that's what it is, and the refusal to tend to it and deal with it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Huge, right?
Yep.
And and so basically with him, I knew, and so as I tended and I was his mom through his addiction, it always he could we were seeing it together almost as a he was the one who was going through this, and I was the one helping him in a different way than any of our ancestors ever were. It was always hidden or lied about or denied. And so when he drove in his car, and I was so connected with him, and I had these experiences, lots of them, but So the soul was activated, I say. Our soul contract, our soul connection was so activated. We were there for each other in such a deep way that went beyond just mom and son, it
Hmm.
was, but it was also very real, I mean, I had to be very mother boundaried with him. So I learned about boundaries. I learned about all those things with my son. And so when he did end up getting in a car accident, I was in a healing session, and I was in a giving some information to some clients, and I saw this vision and I did not know my son was driving this car incredibly fast. Um, a little bit under the influence too. And I saw this vision of a goddess mother coming out of the night sky and picking stars up off the earth and putting them in the sky, and then taking the stars off out of the sky and putting them on the earth. And I said I knew that was like a vision of life and death. I just felt like, oh, mother goddess, which I always talk about, and that's kind of what my kids call me, mom, mother Mary goddess, whatever, but jokingly, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, not really, but with lightheartedness, let's put it that way. Everything has to be done with lightheartedness because otherwise we get so bound up in the grief. So there's that. At that exact moment, my son was passing, and and I shared it with my client, and I knew it wasn't for them, that message. And so it wasn't until about a couple weeks later that my son came through, and he said, "Hey mom, here's what happened when I passed, and I was lifted up out of the car by this mother, angel, goddess. I thought it was you." And I hadn't remembered that vision until, and he goes, "I thought it was you, mom. You lifted me right up out of the car and you held me, and I could
Wow.
feel all the love you ever gave me and all the love I ever experienced." I wrote this in my journal. I was listening to him and tell me what happened when he passed. And then I put all the things together, and I realized there's another piece to the story. He videotaped himself driving the car before the crash, live Facebook. So it was on his Facebook. But
Mm.
you could only see his hand and the speedometer of a Maserati sports car because he worked at a dealership, and he took it out for a test drive, and the speedometer went up to 111 and then stopped, and he posted that. So when I saw that, I knew he went through the portal of light and went into the other realm. And the reason I knew that was because a couple days before that I did my own meditation, and I went through a portal of light on 111, which was the
Mhm.
date. So there's so many synchronicities. So how do I know it was a soul connection? And it was because there's these, there's these, it doesn't have to be as intense as that, but uh, there's this, my soul in this lifetime wants to do a lot of things, apparently, because I keep having experiences, but really wants to know that the bottom line, and this is my message in all the work I do, is love and loving self. And how do we do that? Because there's a lot of, self abuse that
Mhm.
perpetuated through the generations, right? Because we were taught that, we were told that, our religions, our societies, our cultures, and we're that isn't true. That's not our soul. Our soul is saying you are worthy of love no matter what. And so there was that growing of that love is the substance of life force, and understanding too that what is life force energy, what is real, And what is real to me is the energy of who we are, the vibrations that we carry. And yes, our bodies are real, our minds are real, but they're not eternal. They're here learning things, breaking patterns, maybe learning about love, learning about acceptance and peace and harmony.
So that, I mean, that, because you and I talked about this before we came on, this is a good lead in to doing an Akashic record reading, because that seems to be where all this information gets stored. I mean, you know about a little bit more about it than I do. I know bits and pieces. Uh, Before I get into that, I wanted you to really quick for those of us who have been through uh, the loss of a child or the death of a child. Can you give just a real quick pick me up or help on how to survive and thrive after something like that? And then we'll get into the Akashic records.
Yeah, I think that I had to okay, so the most important thing I had to do and I had was to really give myself space
Mm-hmm.
uh that was safe and sacred to I call it sacred and to grieve. I
Yeah.
had to let the pain, let the all, and it is so visceral when it's a child. It's like, very like, and it can get really scary to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So I recommend it, and I did this for myself, and I had to do it alone because I'm that way. I didn't want to go in a group and talk about it. I didn't want to, so I would just let myself cry for however long. I moaned, I wailed, I did this to
Yeah.
move. I did,
The
but I did.
wailing and gnashing of teeth. I know all about that.
Yeah. And that is not just for the loss of a child, but it is energetically needed when you experience such trauma and grief. And so it was about I don't want to clench it in. I physically couldn't really. And so I would walk very gently and slowly. I'd move my body. I was so tender and caring and compassionate towards myself. And I recommend that. And anyone or anything that feels harsh, don't go there. Just
Mm-hmm.
listen, don't go there. And trust your to know that because there's a lot there was so I was so sensitive to that. So you know, get call. That's why I have a Brandon's Angels. And it's like you need a talk, call me. You need a text, So I reached out to people who were offering me just such tender, loving care and kindness. And then I gave that to myself and I said, I'm going to get through this, even though I have no idea how,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I will. And so
There's a
that,
gentleness. There's a gentleness that I believe that not just like finding the support, finding people to hold space for us without telling us it's okay, stop crying, any of that kind of stuff. That's not how to grieve. Grieving involves all types of emotions. It's not just crying, it's anger, it's fear, it's happiness. You laugh. I mean, there's so many things that happen when you're grieving. But in that process, it's important to be gentle with ourselves, right? And to allow this to just flow through the body and come out, because if we don't do the allowing, then it gets stuck in the body, and then that leads into whole other issues of things that go on. So yeah, so that's good. Thank you for that. So how do you want to, like, you're in charge at this point for a little bit with the Akashic records, because what we've talked about is doing like a short reading of me and then kind of going out universally. So how you just guide away.
okay. Thank you so much. Yes. So when you allow, when you give yourself gentle, loving care, however that may look to you, you are telling the universe and the animals and the plants and everything, that's what you want. So it draws more to you. I'm going to open up the record. So we're going to do an Akashic Records reading. That is one of the things that I do. And it's really, I found this way of accessing the other dimensions and the dimension. Who doesn't? Well, I shouldn't say who doesn't. I love libraries. Uh, and okay, see, and ever since I was a kid, books, libraries, I write, I'm an author, I write, I'm like, oh, but you don't have to even love libraries. But what it is I look at it this way. Our, our soul, as we were talking already, has many lifetimes and they're all in the records. They're all in books, big books on this beautiful shelves in this giant store
Repository.
library
Yeah, yeah.
called the Hall of Records, the Akashic, which means all that is, Akasha. So I see it, it's like a field of energy, and it looks to me like a library, and it's beautiful. So I opened it up already. I'll take a moment to say a few words, but I've already opened it up for Caroline here so that we're going to sit in this library and this is how the records work. It's very specific to what is happening in your life at this time. So they're not going to give, they're not, you go in the records and you're going to say, I just want to know blah, blah. And they'll be like, be specific, we got to get you to the
Great.
right book. Got to
Yeah.
get you to the right book. But it doesn't matter how you ask it. It's like it's the vibration of you, your name, your legal name in this lifetime. It opens it up. It says, "Oh, come over here. Here's the wall of Caroline in this lifetime. Tell me what's going on." So I open up the records. I want to say that I'm going to say one little paragraph in the records. You have your teachers, they call them your masters, your teachers, and your loved ones. Not all your loved ones, only the ones that are kind of your guardians, that have information to share with you, are in the Akashic records. So it's not anyone. If they're in the records and they're a loved one, they're going to be there to give you good information. So
Mm.
we're going to open up the records. We're going to ask for your masters, teachers, and loved ones, Caroline. And I'm going to just say this little piece. And so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it's revealed for your highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to you. So I already said the other part, but I like that because it's the highest good and that kind of clears away. And so what I'm going to do is we have your guides, your loved ones, and the lords of the records. So they all watch over your little area of the library. So I would like you to ask me, or you can talk a little bit about something you'd like guidance on. Would you want to do that? Would you like
Yeah.
anything?
I was afraid you were going to ask this question.
Yeah,
Specific
I should have
questions are
warned you.
usually not my strong point.
Okay, well,
So
let's see how it
I
goes.
I feel like, I mean, I'm kind of somewhat aware of the direction I'm going in with the podcast and the work that I'm doing and all of that kind of thing. And I have little bits and pieces of information. I have never had, or not never, but recently had an Akashic viewpoint of what those questions are. So where I'm at now with the podcast and the other work that I'm looking at moving into. Should I be specific about that because it really hasn't come out yet?
No, I'm gonna say, as you speak, your voice, your tone, your inquiry, this is what happens in the Akashic records. It's like the way I see them through my intuitive knowing is I see like this council lining up, and they look uh like they're all wearing the same thing. like
Like
robe.
Voldemort? Is it all these long bearded
Yeah,
men? Yeah,
no, they don't have beard. They could, but yeah, they kind of do. They look like wise
yeah, yeah.
beings, and
Is it
they
Voldemort? I think that's the right one. I don't know. I could
yeah,
be.
I don't know either, but they line up, and I always see this, and they're standing over here, and I kind of go, "Oh, hello," and then they tell me like, "Here's what," and then they give me visualize. So right when you started talking, and so it's about your work and your influence is what I heard. It's like you are ready to step into your influence. It's like you influence people. You are an influencer. I know that's a word that you hear people say,
Right.
I think,
Yeah.
Um,
Just
and
throw
so,
it.
but that's what they're saying. They say you're ready to step into your the ways that you influence people because you're just ready. You're ready. You've been ready for a little bit and they're showing me like dipping your toe in and they're like just dive in. And then they're showing me that you dive and you're like doing this swan dive and you're like, "Whoa," and you're really a good diver. And so the visual and you land the dive. They're assuring you you're going to land the dive. And like don't stick your toe in anymore because and this is what I saw right when you started asking, and I have no idea even what you were saying, but what they were showing me was lots of people are lining up to cheer. Oh, to hear you. Lots of people are lining up. So that's what they showed me. They showed
Hmm.
me all these people coming and standing there and they want to hear you. Okay. So don't be embarrassed or whatever's holding you back. They're saying embarrassed or not ready or not uh like you need to learn more or you need to maybe get uh okay, let me help here. Does this resonate what I'm
Well,
saying?
yeah, because it's not because I just had that this morning. It's like, do I really know what I'm talking about type of thing?
Yep.
Yeah. Like,
Oh, lots of people are lining up to hear you. And, and there's more and more. They're like lining up and they're like pushing each. This is funny. I'm getting the visual. They're showing me the Akashic Records guides are showing me all these people lining up to hear you. But there's rows of them and they're pushing people out of the way to get through this small door to hear you. And so this is very both practical and energetic. Open up the doors really wide. Don't be afraid to open the doors and go whatever that may mean. Open the doors bigger. Like instead of just going into a studio they're showing me one, just the single door like you'd see in a bedroom or in a small bedroom in a small apartment. And then they showed me that it's more like there needs to be auditorium size with many ways in, many doors, like the big doors, where they like in an auditorium where, or they're showing me that we have a place here in Fort Collins called the Lincoln Center. And while it is okay, so this is a message for you. While it hosts many international stars, or people or artists, they want you to consider yourself an artist.
okay.
Like that sun that you have yeah, they want you to consider yourself an artist. Like, instead of and whatever that may mean for you, a creative person, a creative being, like you were given these ideas, these ways of presenting ideas, thoughts, and beliefs that are valid, that are yours to share with many. And you can be discerning. They're saying it, this isn't but up your game. So look at yourself as an artist who is being asked to share her message. in places that are, uh, they're loving and kind, that places. They're not, they're not interested in who's who of the, of the podcasting, spiritual podcast world. It's like, no, what you offer is highly valuable, and not everybody needs to be privy to it. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good, good. So
Yep.
they're saying, yeah. So in the records, also, I'm doing my little spiel here, guides. Hold on. But and they're like, yes, please, Mary, say what you need to say. Although they're probably women, not men. Sorry, dudes. No, they're
Non-physical being. They're just,
physical beings. They're
yeah.
whatever we need them to be. And by the way, that is true. Whatever we need them to be. But they're very wise and very clear and very direct, and they will tell you, they're telling you what you already know but you don't necessarily know how to do it.
Right.
Exactly. And that's where you are right now. They're saying you do have all the knowledge, you do have all the experience, and the way your soul has decided to uh, kind of continue the process of this life is to share your wisdom. And you exactly the way that you're doing it. So they're saying, back to the dive in, you're going to trust that your experiences, how you've met your experiences, because this is, what you want to ask everyone else that comes on your podcast.
Hmm.
And that is very valuable. That's like, yes, ask, how did you do this? Tell me, how did you get through trauma? How did you? Because that's what we need. We need that builds like exponentially, up. And they're showing me, every time you ask someone to share how they lived through these hellacious traumas, they're making it, it's like they're building steps. You're building steps for other people to climb up this mountain. Machu Picchu. You said that.
I said Machu Picchu. Yes, I
But
did.
it's like and you know how I think this is Machu Picchu, the pyramids,
No, this is in Peru. Machu Picchu's
right?
like a
That's
city in the
but
mountains.
but isn't it, do they have ancient ruins that show that are like
I st well, you're
that
doing, yeah.
steps
It's
that
not
are,
this.
yeah,
It's more like, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, they're showing me it's like that. It's like you've been there before, you've been here before, you've been here when it's been worse than it is now. That's what they're
Okay.
saying. They're saying you don't worry, don't worry. This is funny how they're saying it. And this is through my, they're like, don't worry, girls, you've been through worse. And
Okay.
right, like you've got this, and you came here to help the everyday human.
Yeah.
This is the message they're saying. The everyday human, those who are seeking, they're not just, people just need words of encouragement from people who have walked the path.
Hmm.
And when you share that, it allows them to transcend very quickly. So it's so that's why whatever you're don't hesitate don't, I mean, sure, you want to get your ducks in a row, but they're saying your ducks are already in a row.
Oh, okay. Well, let me know if you're done because do you want me to validate now or when you're done with the full thing? Because we
How,
wanted to be
how much
universal also.
time do I have? How much time do you
We have about 20 minutes, I think.
fully? Because, or,
Total. Total.
okay.
Well, we can go a little bit longer than that. That's
So
fine.
let me ask you something. I'm kind of looking at them, and then they're saying, so let they want you to validate, but then you'll have one more question or one more thing that you need some clarity on
Okay.
after you validate.
Yes,
There's
exactly.
so many-
Okay. So here are the validations. The diving in part of it is like connects me with my childhood because when I was a kid, we had a low diving board and a high diving board at the pool that I used to be. I was on the swim team and all this, but I loved being at the pool. So we had the low diving board and the high diving board. I could do whatever off of the low diving board. I loved the low diving board. And one day I decided I wanted to dive off of the high dive. And I climbed up there and I literally sat there or stood there questioning everything, like just like you said, questioning for 20 minutes. And I never ended up diving off of the high dive. I just jumped off of it. And what somebody at one point in my life said, well, at least you jumped off the high dive, you still jumped off of it. And I said, I always jump off it, if it wasn't, but for me, it didn't, I really, really, really wanted to dive off of that high dive, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Right. So when you said that, it was like right in line with that whole energy of that. So that was validating. And then you had brought up the piece about the artist. So I'm a writer, and one of the things that I'm working on, that I've been working on for a long time, that I've been putzing with, is my book. And I, yeah. So I've just been in the process of organizing things and fixing the files and everything because I had like multiple copies of all of this stuff. So I finally put it together. So that was validating for me. And then the other piece that was validating for me was the fact that this podcast is a doorway, which goes back to the door, right? And I said that I knew this like when I started it, or I had a hit when I started it, where it's just a doorway for me to move into the whatever is coming next,
Yeah.
right? So that doorway thing was a validation too, but it was interesting hearing it the way that you said that. And I think that the key piece for me, like all the rest of it all fit. It definitely fit with the steps that I'm taking right now. And I know that like within the next couple of weeks, I'm doing a huge process, let's put it that way, of movement, not full movement, but partial movement, to like break the dam kind of thing to see what's coming, next. But I did have the second question. I guess they heard me thinking it. Is there one how or a couple of hows for my next step? Like what to focus on, or what is that next step? How do I take it? That kind of thing. That's kind of
Okay.
where.
Yeah, and so I'm going to say this, if we were doing a full, hour reading, this is where we would answer specific. You would
Right.
ask specifically,
Well, that's
here,
why I said one.
right, here's my idea.
Yeah.
What about this one? And what about this one? And then in the records, I would give you, they, would give you specific yeses, no. Well, it's not, they don't like yes, no. It's more of here's what this would be, and here's if you
Mhm.
do this. But to answer, I want to say a couple things that they were saying to me while you were talking, because that is how, and then and then the question I'm gonna have you re-ask me. Uh,
Okay.
but they said it was about when you were talking about jumping, that validating the jumping. There's something about that, Caroline, that is still there. It says, I asked, what might you need right now to be comfortable or to dive instead of jump.
Hmm.
So when you're looking at that is an important piece. That's like, what do you need? Do you need to just say, just do it? But there's another question with that. What might you need right now to be comfortable diving, or is jumping enough? So you basically, this is an important piece. You've You've probably been like, you really wanted to dive. You really wanted to dive. So when you look at that experience, which is still vibrationally alive for you, there are places in your life where you really may have wanted to do this, but jumping was fine.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Because diving was a little too scary and you might not have had the skill set yet. And maybe that was a smart thing to do, to just jump. And that's a message. And it's like, so when you're looking at the next things to also being an artist and being an intuitive, you said something about, this is like you're jumping. You jump in, you are an artist, you jump in, you are intuitive, and you said, I got a hit about
The doorway. It was the doorway for the pod.
use that language of I got a hit to do it. And they said when you said that, well, just be ready because right now you getting those intuitive hits, uh, um, there's more than that. It's a way of life.
Mm.
So it's like you're fully jumping into this pool of life as a an intuitive, highly sensitive, that but not a floundering one that uses your highly sensitive, intuitive, empathic beingness to live life. And it's no longer a hardship or a problem or a learning how to deal with. You are living that, and you're to trust that. You're to trust following your knowing, following your intuition more, because it will guide you. You're right there. You're right, like, so energetically, the pool is your where you're taking your next movement. It's like jump in and be fully artist, empath, intuitive, podcaster, writer, and just be that. Like, be that. And so the question again was what?
Question. Oh, and healer. Well, not healer. I don't like using
Healer.
healer, but that's
Yeah,
part of it.
all of it, all of who you are.
Great. Okay. Is there one how that they could recommend as I'm going into my next movement phase for me to
Like,
look
uh,
at?
okay, you have to be a little more specific, like how to
Well,
what?
because I'm going to a different location to check it out for move
Oh,
for full movement. This is a movement to check out for full movement. So is there something that I need to do while I'm there, maybe just to figure out or validate or whatever?
okay.
Uh,
Be, so you're physically going to go somewhere?
yeah, for the next couple of weeks, I'll physically go to a place that I'm looking to move
Maybe
to.
move to.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Just what I just said. You want to be fully present and fully aware of how you feel in your body, who's showing up, how you're feeling is so important. And because, it's an opportunity for you to really wear your intuitive healer being new persona, kind of your persona almost, but it's real, it's not fake. Uh, as you walk through, because that's what I'm seeing you like, where I see you dressed in a way that and it doesn't mean you do this, but you dress in your true self and you go out and you notice and observe and you be very discerning with how you're feeling. They're saying you must, how do I feel about this?
Mm-hmm.
How do I feel? What does this feel like? What is this person? And and you'll know exactly, and then you got to trust that. You got to trust what you're getting. Don't try to go, well, but I really wanted that, or I really hoped. Oh, really? Is this person right? Is this person that
Yep.
way? Really? And it's
Yep.
like, and if you feel that, you just, they're going to say this, they're going to say, go this place or wherever you're going has a lot of good opportunity. It's good, it's positive, but there's a specificness about it that you need to find. So there's like, you might be going to some place, but you need to be in a specific, it's like you're looking at this big house, you're looking in a neighborhood that is okay, they're saying, example, you're looking in a neighborhood for a house to buy, and you go into all the different houses, and none of them, they start to not feel right. So then you leave and go to a whole different neighborhood. They're saying, don't do that. Just go into, just know that you'll find the right house. I don't know if this is real, like in the neighborhood, in the place, but be discerning because you're going into this new place in your life, in your in all areas, but you've been waiting to go into this for a long time, and it's calling you and you're calling it. So trust where you're going, but be very discerning with how you feel, and you'll be guided to the specifics of what you need.
Okay.
Now, does that help?
Yes, yes. The validation is just for those who are listening, is it is, even though there's not specifics that I brought up, it's she's still validating things that I've looked at, and or they're all doing it. She's doing it, they're doing it through her, through Mary, but it's all landing on exactly what is coming up for me. So there's that. Okay. Is there anything
Collectively,
else? Huh?
well, I want to go, this is a segue, like, okay. So, and again, for you listeners who are like, oh, I want to do this, it's like you can ask specifically, like, oh, I'm doing, but yes, that they're showing me, I'm seeing it, and I'm sharing it with you, knowing that, this is your private life out on view, and you might want to,
Well, I hold back on some of it
yeah,
because
yeah,
I don't want to tell everybody what I'm doing yet because it'll
exactly.
kind of mess that up. So I just kind of give like little bits and pieces of it for the purpose
And
of, yeah.
so they know that the guidance in the records, and I know it. So it's like you get what you need, but it's much more specific when you're in a private, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
individual
yeah.
records. But
So
anyway, but collectively, do you want me to
yeah,
go?
I want you to go in, and
Because it,
can you
go
do it
ahead.
in how what I'm doing relates to the collective, or
Yes.
are you just gonna, okay, okay,
Is it
okay.
okay? Oh, that's
Oh,
even better. Because the segue was, and everything I just said to you is really where the guidance is suggesting we all go, because in order to as many people as possible waking up to their authentic self, like we started this whole thing, there's a theme, I love themes, that helps me use my intuition to make sense instead of being so sensitive. I'm like, oh, there's a pattern, there's a theme, there's breadcrumbs, follow
yeah.
them. How does that make sense? So it collectively we are in a time of, and collectively I'm talking about the energy of earth, and earth mother, the earth body of the earth, and the animals, plants, people, four-leggeds, two-leggeds, all the people that live on the earth. At this time, we've all agreed to collectively ch change. And so there really isn't, I'm getting this information, and it's quite, I'm like, whoa, really? We've all agreed to change. We've all agreed to change, and we're all doing it. We've all agreed to live our authentic selves, our true nature, as best as we can. And that is what is causing the upheaval. That's an interesting way to look at it, right? There isn't like these dark forces. Well, there are, but it's because
It's because we're poking at them.
yes, it's because everyone agreed
Yeah.
with, I like how this is a very interesting message to go, okay, I'm going to come be alive on the planet in, 2025. Okay. So, and whenever you got here. because I want to be a part of this. Sure. What doesn't sound great about living our authentic true selves? But we know how this is. Then the denseness and the heaviness, and we forget, which is a lot of our remembering. But
Mhm.
there's another piece to it. It's like we all agreed to do our best to live our authentic selves, to live true to our heart, to live true to our soul. And so do that because there you will never go wrong. They're these now they're really showing me like a Harry Potter school or something, like, and I'm not super into, well, my kids were, but it's like we're teaching you, you're those of us who listen to this and go, oh yeah, I am living my authentic self. Oh yes, like you are. And so you, Caroline, and anyone who's listening to this in the future at time who go, yeah, I am doing that. Don't give up, don't stop, keep doing it, keep going for it, because you do not know the ripple effect you're having. And this is why we are here to do this. And then those people who it looks like they're doing everything against that, and how we are niggle, we're poking the bears, so to speak. They too agreed to wake up their most authentic true self. And when they're like, really, I have to do that, and they're off doing harm or cruel things, they got their rude awakening, right? They're like, oh. And when more and more of us are just living that true authentic self, there's nowhere to go but up. There's nowhere for them to hide. There's nowhere for it to go except for either transform or leave. And that is where we are right now. It's like, and that doesn't mean people who pass away aren't awakening, because that is a way to awaken.
Mhm.
It's like, oh yeah, okay, I did my thing. Now I'm going to go off into another reality. But for you, you are going to find a place where you, Caroline, feel really good and really at home and really able to be loved and supported in a way that feels just gentle and kind and happy and safe to you. And that is what the collective message is, for us to keep awakening to our authentic true self and be with and around the people who feel like our soul family. Like, and it's joyful. Don't forget that joyfully lightheartedness is and it's not in it, it's I've always had that. And even I got that this morning in my own meditation. The guides they're like, see, that's why we told you that. It's like lightheartedness and joy are some of the most powerful substances. They are the most powerful. I said love, and that is true. And joy and lightheartedness move mountains.
And now I get to do the validation piece again. Because here's the thing. Oh, by the way, the name of this podcast is Awakening Soul Divinity, right?
Oh, okay.
So, like, you didn't know that, right? Yeah, it's okay because a lot of people don't remember that that's the name
I
of the
did
podcast.
not remember in my
Yeah,
opening
that's
to all these higher.
that's okay. That's great because that's the thing. It's what's happening, and I'm seeing it on other people's podcasts and the way you did that, and other people talking. It's like all these words, all these things that I've personally been working on myself and putting out there. Uh, they're like fitting into these things. So the byline for my podcast is uncover the truth of who you are.
There you go.
There it is. So there's the authenticity right there, right? Then you were taught, well, you mentioned awakening, but the other interesting piece is about all coming together. So the other piece of this podcast is building community. Okay. So, and then the thing that got me before we get into these other questions, I just want to make sure we know this, and this has happened. This isn't the first time this has come up. My middle name which is Rena. That's not my actual last name. I have a last name, but I like, this is a better vibration for me to work with. But Rena means joy.
Oh.
So this lifetime is that opening of joy, the search, then the opening, and then the bringing it to fruition. So collectively, that what I and I've known this for a long time. It's like all the stuff that I've been working on, the trauma I've been through, that I picked, all these traumas I picked in this lifetime, and then prior lifetimes or whatever, however that works, because we're all over, the time isn't linear anyway. But it's like all these traumas taught me and led me to my middle name. It's like joy and love and peace, and I mean, I have my moments, yeah, 100%. I'm human, right? And I think it's really interesting that everything that I envisioned related to the podcast and related to the work that I'm moving into, and all this stuff, it all fits in with the collective, which goes back to what you were saying about me stepping out there. It's almost like in what's it called, human design. I am a projector, self-projected projector, and in that space, I'm also an observer. So I watch everything that goes on. People don't see me; they just kind of know, and then I share my experience. That's all I do. So I'm a role model.
That's
And that's where
powerful.
all this, and it's just interesting how in the last 4 years, with all of the deep dives into the dark nights of the soul and all the things that I've been, diving into, working through, and I've done work with Mary as well, and she moved me up into this next level. It was like, so it's so I love being validated, so I can validate my validations. Does that make sense? I
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just really interesting that all the work that I've been doing has been moving me into where they are saying I'm already doing it. Like, it's validating my moves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And thank you so much for sharing that and for awakening to your true self, because that's another message. And I want to say it, like you said it, and I want to reiterate it, that everything that has happened to us individually and and collectively, because that's what we're looking at too, collectively and then individually, has moved us
mhm.
exactly where we need to be so that we can not then do what our soul came to do. We're already there.
Yeah.
And that wasn't necessarily true maybe 10 years or 5 years or even 4 years ago. It was like we were all moving into these, oh no, global pandemic. Oh my God. Oh no, this, that, But and then, as we saw, some people, it really affected other people, it didn't. But now we're all in places where we're meant to be. And the vibration you said of rippling by example
Mhm.
is so it that is very true for you. And it's very true for many, but also I am a different kind of vibration of I do my example, but to many. I am in the human design. My personal one is a manifesting generator. So I kind of look at that as I get to go visit with the Akashic record folks and be in that space that I think is amazing. And I don't need to go into the Akashic records. I can go in my yard that I've created a sacred space, as I talked about people doing in grief, create those little sanctuaries and nests. And
Mhm.
then from that place, I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to go like travel to some other place and find a new home. My home, I did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure you can look around and see where you are and go, what if I am exactly in the right place? But even if you feel you need to move, and that's fine, physically, there's going to be a lot of movement right now.
Hmm.
physically moving, because as I said, and as you are responding to, you're like, yes, I'm finding the perfection of what I'm offering, what I'm doing. And I mean perfection in the broad sense of it feels so right, in your body and your bones and your knowing that my group, my people come, my spaces come, meet
Hmm.
me, everything falls into place. For you, you are going bigger. You're opening many doors because
Yay.
what you are offering and who you are and how you do it is a powerful medicine
Mm,
for
yeah. Ah, okay. Just because you walk through something doesn't mean it's still not scary. Just saying. Okay.
oh,
So, yeah.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I have a few questions I want to ask you that I ask everyone. And for most of these questions, and if you could just be as succinct as possible on some of these, because we're getting close to time, or we're probably over. I don't know yet, but this has been great. So this first one's like really important because the people who are probably coming to start watching it. If you could offer one piece of advice to someone just starting their healing journey, what would it be?
Yes, well, I kind of touched on that bit with self-kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Being, someone starting on their healing journey, um, making sure that it's like you don't want to look at it like there's something wrong with you
Mm-hmm.
and you need to fix it or change it. It's more of, as our whole message is today, it's really a discovering that place that you're a beautifully, perfectly flawed human being. And and how would you tend to that? How would you tend to yourself
Mm.
if that were true? Even if you feel broken and raw and wrong and what all those things, what if you were just a beautifully perfect being and you tended to yourself with self-care, self-love? Even if you never have had that experience, you know what that is.
Mm.
And if you can just get a tiny bit of that
Yeah.
self-love, self
Yeah.
that
Yes. That's
it'll
beautiful.
it'll start you where you need to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. How do you define awakening?
Looking at life that it feels it might I just had this visual. I wake up in the morning and I see the sun and I'm like, yay, I'm awake. But
Yeah.
it's that, but it's really I never saw it that way before. That to me is awakening, where you can see the bigger picture. You can go, wow, I thought this was the only way it was ever going to be forever. And guess what? You awaken to the beauty, the joy, the love. It's like a brand new day where everything looks different. That's
Yeah.
a way.
That's beautiful. What does soul divinity mean to you?
Oh, I just feel like when I just feel that soul divinity is our light. It's like I see it like a collective, beautiful bubbles of light that come from within, and that is the purity of who we are is our soul divinity.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. So, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I have a website and my my healing arts practice, which it's called Heart of Gaia, but it is my name is my website, and you can find everything I do, and it's myname.com. So Mary DAGOSTINO.com. And all the things I offer, all the different wonderful things to awaken your soul divinity.
Here it is. Thank
Oh, this has
you
been
for that.
wonderful.
Thanks for the plug.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up?
Well, no, I think what you just said, I just get a giggle and a kick because that's what we're doing here. I love, love, love more than anything. I've always said the collaboration, like, oh, I love what you're doing. Let's do this together and let's support each other and
Yeah.
let's uplift each other and inspire and let's hold each other up. And when I can help someone, I'm going to help. When I need help, I there will be help. That is what I am offering as a vision and as a blessing and as a hope for all of us.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. So, Mary, I've already had quite a few beautiful experiences with you, both personally and on this podcast. So, I'm enjoying it so far. The ride is amazing. So, I just wanted to say, obviously, thank you to you for being here, and everyone else. Thank you for watching Awakening Soul Divinity podcast, and have a beautiful, beautiful day or night wherever you are, and peace.
Peace.